Although this says Autologue, this definitely isn't Autologue. Welcome to our new place. We call it AL Ranch. So welcome to the AL Ranch. We're not going to get into too many details, but it's going to be a special place with a one-of-a-kind collection of enthusiasts coming together to get down and dirty. We did it with Autologue, we started it with Autologue. We want to take it to the next level. Before I get tempted into giving you more details, let's just get into the background of how this happened. Dirt racing in our Indian scene probably has got a lot of history, more history than maybe road racing. We have a lot of brands like TVS and Hero who've been working really hard at getting the sport itself up. How it's going to go to the next level is when local cities also have platforms and avenues for people to not only learn but also get competitive. So that's what we're trying to get into. When I was in the 6th grade or back in the day, bikes that used to be raced were the Enfield Explorers, the ESD Java, CZs, and even a couple of Bonds. So this, my friends, is the BSA Bond. Mine's a 1982, I think, 1982, yeah. Yeah, in all her glory, thanks to Yogi Chabria, my friend in Bombay, who fixed her up for me. Backstory of my BSA Bond. When I was in the 6th standard in Bangalore, I used to see a lot of these bikes being raced at local dirt tracks. And in my society, there was one that was broken down and just lying in a corner. So we went to that uncle. I used to actually have a lot of these keys that I used to go and try in various motorcycles. Jisme bhi chalti thi, I used to take it for a spin. So this was one of the bikes that we had noticed. We never got it running, obviously, but we figured whose it was. So we went to him and we said, "Ki uncle, we want this bike, please give it to us." So he said, "Sure, 2,000 rupees." So 4 of us put 500 bucks together and we bought our first motorcycle, the BSA Bond. So that's my connect with it. Mine was in very, very bad shape, very different from what this one looks like. Mine had no fuel cap. We had put a jurab or a sock instead of the fuel cap. Both the tires were punctured. We used to still ride with 2 flat tires and triple seat, but we were much lighter then. Anyway, so yeah, that's how it's special to me. So when I was getting married, I told my wife that I want a motorcycle on my wedding. So she said, "I can't get you a very expensive one." I said, "No problem. A motorcycle is a motorcycle." So I found this one in Nagpur for about 35,000-40,000 bucks. Literally gave her the link and said, "Ye khareed ke de do meko." So, but she was nice enough to actually get it for me. 5 years later, the BSA Bond is actually in the shape that I wanted it to be. But obviously, every project takes time. So I have no qualms about how long it took. I'm so happy with what it's turned out to be. The special things about the BSA Bond, apart from my connection, let's just talk about a few of them. So I don't claim to be a auto historian, so I might have some facts wrong. So I'll just give you an overview of what my understanding is of what the Bond story is. BSA had gone out of business and they were coming back. They had been invested in. I think they probably started in 1978. So one of the things that they started off with was a commissioned bike for Brook Bond. Brook Bond, the tea, chai wale. And they had an automotive division. So they wanted to get into making motorcycles. So with Morini engines, Moto Morini engine, 50cc, built in Italy, they came up with this design which had 2 versions. One was a monoshock like this one. Mine originally was not a monoshock. It had the dual suspension, but I wanted the mono, so Yogi actually bought another bike, swapped the part while he was rebuilding it. So yeah, it had 2 suspension options. It was the first bike that came with a mono. The first mono itself was 1973. This was 78, but for India it was the first one. So that way it was very special. Having a mono suspension meant, and the fact that it was so light, meant that it could do trails and off-road really well. Nothing over the top, but it could tackle the local kind of dirt tracks that we had. It was a real challenger there, especially for the Enfields. So the Bond was also called the Falcon. So BSA had 3-4 names that I've found. GT50, Falcon, Beaver, this, and I think there's one more, Spitfire or something like that. Eventually they were trying to cut costs down. They moved to plastic panels instead of the metal ones that the earlier ones had. So yeah, it wasn't a success, even though it should have been. It was a great bike back then. They did decently well in the beginning, but they faded out pretty quick too. But they had a lasting impact, like you can see, 2022. So that's about it about my BSA bond. We have a lot of interesting stuff happening at the workshop and the ranch, as you can see. So expect a lot more on what's happening here. Until then, see you at Ridermania.